effort is than you are.
Have fun, take a deep breath.
Matt, good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day.
Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
10-4, great job, guys.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I'm gonna wait till this comes up. I may have to start over. Waiting for Family Man to let me know if he can hear me. All right, there we go. All right, let's go back to the top of the heap here. I'm gonna start this thing over. I can figure out how to use this new mouse. All right, I'm not going to go through Bristol Dirt because Bristol Dirt sucked. At least for Draftkings and my video. I'm not sure everybody else, how everybody else did, but it sucked. And you could see what was happening. So either way, Martinsville, short track, 0.526 miles in length, 11 degrees in the turns. The race length is 400 laps. What am I doing here? Got a new laptop and everything's different. Being on the road's different. As I do more of these, I'll get better at it. Race length 400 laps. Dominator points of 280. And from laps led of 100 and fast laps of 180. So very similar to what we had 2 weeks ago at Richmond with 400 laps there also. When we're looking at our track comparisons, we're comparing Richmond, Martinsville, Phoenix, Nashville, Super Speedway. We can also put Gateway and Loudon, New Hampshire into that mix. So let's get into the breakdown here of driver by driver. William Byron at top of the heap at 10,800. As I always do every week, I'll go in depth for anybody that's new here. So William Byron, 10,800. The next line here will be his qualifying spot, which is 8th. And then in gray here are his practice stats. So he was second fastest in single lap practice. He did a total of 43 laps in practice. And in the 10 lap average, he was second fastest of everyone. William Byron, on this next line here, this is the last 5 races at Martinsville. So take that into account that he is, that this is the last 5 races at Martinsville. The last 2 from last year are in the next gen car, and then the 3 previous were in the last gen car. And then this year, we now have the next-gen car with the short track package. So, shorter spoiler, some undercarriage stuff that they did differently to the car, which changed the downforce. So, it's 30% less downforce. They ran this package at Phoenix and at Richmond. And those both put on pretty good races. So, and at least in practice and qualifying, it seems to have really helped the car not handling as well, which makes for better racing and the ability for passing and tire wear and that type of stuff. So I think it should be a pretty exciting race today. This weekend has been pretty good, other than the cold, wet night on Friday night. But William Byron, in the last 5 races at Martinsville, has 1 win, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s, and 4 top 20s. That 1 win was last spring when it was 33 degrees and snowing at the beginning of the race last year. He's got a 56.8 Draftkings average over those 5 races and a 10.6 average finish. He finished 8th in the race last year. And then on this right-hand side, we've got total starts here at Martinsville for 10. He does have that 1 win, 4 top 5s, 6 top 10s, and 7 top 20s. Then over here to the top left, I have the ranking system, which takes into account the last 5 races at Martinsville, the last 10 races on short track comparisons, and then the last 10 races as a trend, and then practice and qualifying, and all that kind of equates to William Byron being 6th on my ranking. And I've got 20 to 25% ownership out of 40 lineups. So I run 40 different lineups, and William Byron is in 20 to 25% of those lineups. I expect him probably to be owned about that heavy, so I'm probably even with the field when it comes to that. Family Man, other than my video not being very good because of the window behind me, it was really the only spot that I could set this all up. Everything else good. Either way, who do you got today, William or Family Man? Who do you think is a good DraftKings pick. There's a ton of chalk towards the back. Who do you think might win this? I think Kevin Harvick's my choice for a win, by the way. So, all right, next in line here, we'll kind of continue on. I do need to leave in about 35 to 40 minutes to head to the track, so try to get this done as quickly as possible. And if you got questions, make sure you hit me up in the chat. Also, hit that like and subscribe button. All right, Kyle Larson, 10,600, starting 19th. Our first guy who runs pretty well at short tracks, who is starting towards the rear. His practice speeds were about the same, 15th in single lap and 15th in 10-lap averages. I mean, he is averaging a 10th place average finish here at Martinsville, and he finished second in the fall race last year. And he won the Richmond race and was running and led lots of laps at Phoenix. So he and William Byron both have been doing very well on short tracks, so keep an eye out for both of them. Kyle Larson starting 19th. There's a ton of PD upside potential, so Kyle Larson coming in rank number 1 for me. All right, and I've got 35 to 40% ownership. Christopher Bell, 10,600, starting 22nd. His practice speeds were not very good. 29th in single lap, he did 38 total laps, and he was 26th in 10-lap consecutive average, and then qualified 22nd. Yeah, there was something really interesting that happened with qualifying, and once we get to the guys that are starting a little further up front, I'll give you my best guess analysis of what happened and why they were so different from practice. But anyway, Christopher Bell has got one win here at Martinsville, which was the fall race last year. So he finished first in the last race that we had here. 12th place average finish. Toyotas are typically fairly good. The Toyotas and Chevys are fairly good here at Martinsville. Yeah, the Fords are pretty good too. Joey Logano's got a pretty good record, and so does Ryan Blaney. So there's a crop of about 10 guys that really run well every time we come to Martinsville. It'll be interesting to see if that continues with this new package. But Christopher Bell has a pretty good track record here at Martinsville with 1 win, 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, and 5 top 20s. I have him in 40 to 45% of my lineups. I think he gets himself into a top 5 position and just kind of cruises on. He could also vie for a win here. Martin Truex Jr., 10,300, who's got 3 total wins here at Martinsville, 1 in the last 5 races. He's got 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s, 2 top 20s in the last 5 races. So not the latest trend is not great for Martin here at Martinsville. He is starting 5th, but he was 17th in single lap and 14th in 10-lap consecutive average. He finished 21st in this race last year. And Martin's just kind of been on the outside looking in, so I'm not sure exactly what to do with Martin Truex Jr. Starting 5th, there's not a whole lot of PD upside potential. I don't know if he goes out and gets past everybody early to dominate. I think there's some other better drivers that may end up getting in front of him that will dominate early. So don't really like a whole lot of Martin Truex Jr. There's no real upside on place differential, and I'm not sure he gets himself to a top 10 finish. So I faded off of Martin Truex Jr. He's 12th on my rankings, and I've got him in 5 to 10% of my lineups. Family Man says, yeah, everything is good. I like Harvick for the win. He has great run long speed. Yeah, he was fastest, or one of the fastest, in 25, 30 lap averages. His car just seems to be set up really well for this track, and he's got a ton of experience here. Let's talk about somebody else who's got a lot of experience here and a lot of wins. Denny Hamlin, 10,100, starting 11th. He was 21st in single lap, 20th in 10-lap consecutive average. He's got a 75.3 DraftKings average, which is still not the highest of the grouping, and a 14.4 average finish. He did finish 6th in the fall race here last year. He had an abysmal spring race, but it was so cold that nobody could pass. It was literally, you only passed in the pits, and then you just kind of ran single file on the bottom. At least so far this weekend, especially for the Xfinity race last night, we saw a lot of competitive racing, 2 wide, 3 wide even. A lot of being able to get your nose up underneath somebody and kind of just slightly move them up to get around them. So, as long as these guys are aggressive, they want to get to the front, they can make passes and get to the front. Denny Hamlin on his podcast earlier this week said he's going to tear it down the next 5 or 6 weeks. So we'll see what that really has. I think everybody wants to go out and do well, but Denny Hamlin's calling his shot here. Let's see if he can back it up. I've got him in 15 to 20% of my lineups. Next in line here, we have got Joey Logano, 9,900, starting 15th. He was 23rd in single lap speeds. He did 55 laps of practice, which was the most of anyone. There is one more driver who almost got to that much, and we'll talk about him in just a minute. 23rd and 10 lap consecutive average, so he improved himself a little bit on qualifying. Joe Logano does have the best average finish over the last 5 races of 5.6, and he's got a 48.2 Draftkings average. He finished 7th in this race last year. I think Joe Logano is a pretty good pick to try to get inside that top 10 and stay in that top 10. Whether Joey's battling for a number 1 spot, I don't like Joey for the win today, but I do like him for about 7th or 8th. And maybe with some different strategy, he can get himself in the top 5. So I've got him in 10 to 15% of my lineups, and he's 7th on my ranking system. All right, Kyle Busch here, 9,700. He's got 2 wins here at Martinsville, but none in the last 5 races. And last year, he was abysmal in the fall race. I think he ended up being lapped twice by BJ McLeod at one point. That's how bad Kyle Busch was here last year. I'm not sure that was really Kyle's fault. That was more the car setup, but $9,700, 17th starting. He was pretty quick in practice. He was 7th in single lap, 6th in 10 lap consecutive average. So I think we've got some PD upside potential here with Kyle. He did practice well, and he typically runs very, very well. I mean, if we take out the 30th place finish from the fall race last year, he still has an 11.6 average finish. So that one race really kind of pulled him down. He would have a better than 10th place average finish. As we can see, he's got 4 top 10s in the last 5 races. So Kyle Busch is pretty good, pretty consistent here. This will be the first time he has raced a Chevy in a long time, but we'll see what Kyle Busch has got. I think there is a little bit of PD upside potential. All right, Ryan Blaney. Whoa, talk about some PD upside potential. Ryan Blaney, 9,500, starting 31st. Nothing wrong. He just missed his qualifying lap, is for what he said in his interview. And there were a couple guys who just missed their qualifying. I think they kind of got stuck behind the 8 ball and didn't adjust their car enough as much as everybody else did. I think there's some guys that really bumped their air pressures up and really taped their cars up for just a 2-lap run, and were really aggressive, and it paid off for them. I'm not sure it pays off in the race, though. But Ryan Blaney starting 31st, 14th in single lap, 7th in 10-lap consecutive average. Ryan Blaney did finish 3rd here last year. He's got a 6.2 average finish and a 62.1 Draftkings average. 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 5 top 20s. I mean, everything signals very good for Ryan Blaney. He should get himself easily into the top 15 or top 10, even starting 31st. That's a ton of PD upside potential. He's going to be heavily owned, and I've got a decent amount of Ryan Blaney, as you can see. All right, Chase Elliott, 9,300. Another guy who just said, yep, I sucked at qualifying, and that was all my fault. He did not blame his leg, so welcome back, Chase. But you take 6 weeks off. I mean, I know that you get some simulator time and stuff like that, but you take 6 weeks off, you got to knock the rust off. Starting 24th, I mean, he was 10th fastest in single lap and 5th in 10-lap averages for practice, so practice speeds were okay, and he just didn't do well at qualifying. So his loss may be our gain. Pretty good PD upside potential. He's got an 8th place average finish, and he leads everyone with 101 Draftkings average here at Martinsville. So take that for what it is. Just remember, he has been out for 6 weeks, so he's going to have to knock that rust off. But I don't think it'll take him long to get right back into where he needs to be. So I honestly think that this is going to turn out to be fairly similar to most Martinsville tracks. I think we're going to see the guys that run well here make it to the top. The Chase Elliott's, the Ryan Blaney's, the Joey Logano's. William Byron, as of late, has started to run really well here. Those are the guys that I think could end up showing up front by the time we get closer to 400 laps. I also think that Kevin Harvick is still my pick to win this thing. So Tyler Reddick, 9,100, starting sixth, was absolutely hands down fastest in practice. And single lap, first and 10 lap, and he did that pretty dominantly. But he was also in the first group. The track was also pretty green. So it's a little faster when that occurs. So take that into account. He did drop just a little bit into sixth for qualifying. But Tyler Reddick's stats here are not great, but he was in the Chevy last year, and he's in this Toyota this year. Is that going to make a difference? It did not make a difference in Richmond because he was still pretty bad in Richmond. He does not have a top 5 finish at all here at Martinsville. He's got one top 10 and only 3 top 20s in the last 5 starts. 20.8 average finish. So he finished 36th in the fall race. I've only got him in 10 to 15% of my lineups. Yeah, I mean, his practice speed's really good. I don't know if that's going to equate to long run speed at Martinsville. Ross Chastain, and the guy who made that move last year at the race to get into the Final Four, 8,800. Can't do that again this year. I bet you he probably thought he wished he could during qualifying because he qualified 34th after being 3rd in single lap speed and 13th in 10 lap consecutive average. Just absolutely did not qualify well. Ross is it's going to be an interesting one. He's got 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s in the last 5 races. He's got a 13.5 average finish. He finished 5th in that race where he did the Hail Melon. Yeah, I mean, starting 34th, that's your loss, our gain. Ross should easily be a top 15 or not top 10 finisher today, so a ton of PD upside. Remember, I mean, these guys are going to be really chalky. Ross is going to be chalky. Christopher Bell's going to be chalky. Chase Elliott's going to be pretty chalky. Ryan Blaney's going to be chalky. But we can't take all of these guys. They're all too expensive to take them all. So we got to find some guys in the cheaper realm. And then you get somebody that goes out and leads 300 of the 400 laps, and you've got a dominator that will potentially get as many points as Ross and these guys. Chase Briscoe, 8,600, starting 4th. This is somebody who I think hit the setup for qualifying and did not have quite the setup for race. I'm leaning much more on what they did in practice as more than what they did in qualifying. He was 22nd in single lap, 24th in 10 lap, and then qualified 4th. Yeah, big jump there. Either way, Chase Briscoe's pretty decent at short tracks, but he's only got 2 top 10s in the last 5 starts here at Martinsville and a 17th place average finish, and he finished 10th in this race last year. So I don't have a whole lot of ownership in Chase Briscoe. I think his short run speed was good for qualifying, but I don't think he's got the long run speed. I could be proven wrong, but Kevin Harvick, $8,400. He was 7th for qualifying, 5th in single lap, 3rd in 10 lap consecutive average. Just very consistent the entire time. He did 44 total laps at practice. He was 17th here in the fall race. Last year, he does have 1 win here at Martinsville, and in the last 5 races, not so great. No top 5s, 1 top 10, and 5 top 20s. So, I mean, I think Kevin Harvick, I still like Kevin Harvick a lot today. His long run speed was really, really good. Steven, thanks for joining in, and you've got Chase Elliott. Good. I do like Chase Elliott a lot today. He's got to knock the rust off. He's got to get that feel back, which won't take him long. He's a champion of the sport. And, yeah, I think Chase Elliott could easily end up in the top 5, if not vying for that win and lock himself into the playoffs. Wouldn't that be a story? Take 6 weeks off and come back and get the win. Next in line here, Alex Bowman, 8,200, starting 23rd. That's about where he practiced. So I kind of think maybe if we get some attrition, Alex Bowman has got some PD upside, and he typically runs pretty well here. He does have a win that he got a couple years ago. Along with that win, he's got 2 top 10s and 3 top 20s, a 13.3 average finish. He did not race in this race last fall because of his concussions. But either way, I think Alex Bowman has got enough PD upside potential to take him. All right, Daniel Suarez, $8,000. And in the last 5 races here, he's only got 1 top 20, and then he goes out and qualifies 2nd. Now, his practice speeds were good. He had a 6th place single lap and a 9th place in 10 lap consecutive average. He did finish 13th in the fall race, but starting second, that I don't have a whole lot of interest in. There are other guys that I think are going to end up being. Now, Daniel could easily get out and lead some laps in that first stage, but I think once everything kind of cycles out, I think Daniel's probably more in the 10 to 15 range. So I have no interest really in Daniel Suarez. I think I may have him in 1 or 2 lineups at most. Chris Buescher, 7,800, starting 10th. Now, Chris did really well in practice. He was 4th in single lap, 10th in 10-lap consecutive average, and then went out and qualified 10th. And he's got a 20th place average finish, which kind of scares me a little bit, starting in 10th. I do have some ownership because I think RFK is going to bring something to the table. They were really good at Richmond also, pretty good at Phoenix. So RFK slowly is starting to turn that corner. And I think Chris Buescher, I think he's one of the guys that I'm looking just to run and finish where you are. And at 7,800, that's going to give me enough points. So either way, love the pop-ups in these new computers. All right. So next in line here, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher's teammate and boss, 7,700. I do like Brad Keselowski's starting spot a little better than Chris Buescher's. 21st, but that's about where he practiced. He was 24th in single lap, 19th in 10-lap consecutive average. Now, Brad did finish 4th in the fall race last year, and in the last 5 races, he's got 3 top 5, 3 top 10s, and 4 top 20s. He does have 2 wins to his record out of 26 total starts here at Martinsville, so he knows how to get around. I've got him in 30 to 35% of my lineup, so I do like a lot of Brad Keselowski today. Along with Austin Dillon, who has turned out to be kind of the quiet one, who just always seems to show up for these races and finishes in the top 10. He does have a 17.4 average finish, but in the last few years, he's kind of just gotten a little bit better. $7,500, starting 18th. He qualified better than he practiced because he was 32nd in single lap and 32nd in 10-lap consecutive average. He does have 1 top 5 and 1 top 10 in the last 5 races here and a 17.4 average finish. Part of it's being dragged down from that 34th place finish last fall. But either way, I like a little bit of Austin Dillon. I've got him in 25 to 30% of my lineups. Ryan Preece, 7,400. 31st in practice, and then you go out and just crush the pole. One of the few drivers who ended up getting under 20 seconds for qualifying. He wasn't even close to that in practice. So it tells me they really taped that up. They really bumped the air pressures up on that, and he just sent it, and it stuck. I think Ryan Preece is a great short track driver, but I just think you outkicked your coverage. That's plain simple. I mean, if he had been in the top 5 or 10 in practice and then went out and did that, I'd be like, okay, maybe you got something, but your practice speeds were not where they need to be qualifying first. So no interest there. Eric Almirola, who's really, really good at short tracks at $7,200, is starting 3rd. I think it's a little too high for my liking. I think he could potentially be a top 10 driver, but I mean, if he goes from 3rd to 10th, that's too many place differentials in the wrong way. So I don't have a whole lot of interest in Eric Almirola today, even though I typically do like him when it comes to these short tracks. He's got 11.4 average finish. So he's got a good average finish, but in my opinion, he just outkicked his coverage along with Ryan Preece and Daniel Suarez. So I don't have a whole lot of interest in at least the top 3 so far. Bubba Wallace, 7,100. Bubba Wallace does have a win here in the Truck Series. He does not have a top 5 finish yet in the Cup Series, but does have 1 top 10. He's got a 17.4 average finish. He's starting 9th, 13th in single lap, and 8th in 10-lap consecutive average. So, I mean, all indications are he's going to probably finish where he starts, but are the goblins outside of Bubba's head yet? He seems to be in a better mood than he seems to have been the last few weeks. So maybe Bubba Wallace has finally gotten the whatever's going on in his head straight. I don't know. I've got him in 15 to 20% of my lives. I do have him in some. So I do like a little bit of Bubba Wallace today. I wish he was starting a little bit further back because I don't think it really gives much of a PD upside or PD downside play. I mean, if you think it's more of a PD downside play with Bubba. Ty Gibbs, 6,900. He had 53 laps of practice. And this is what Ty Gibbs does. He studies this sport and studies the track and how to race the track. And he's just getting more and more accustomed to this car. And each week he just continually, it's not like all of a sudden he comes out of the gate and leads a bunch of laps and all of a sudden you notice him. He's just quietly been improving his finishing positions every week by 3 or 4 spots. And now all of a sudden he's running top 15s. I think Ty Gibbs by the end of this year is going to get himself a win. He just is being very methodical by it. He needs to listen to his crew and his crew chief and just kind of follow everything that he's got going on. But starting 12th, he was not fastest in practice, but I don't think he was looking to be fastest in practice. I think he was looking at how to get this car set up for long runs and keep himself up there and get himself into a top 10 finish. And I think Ty Gibbs could easily be that today. So I do have a fair amount of, I've got 10 to 15% of Ty Gibbs, but I think Ty Gibbs quietly could be somebody to keep a real close eye on today. Austin Cindric at 6,800, starting 25th. I mean, it's good for us. He was 19th in single lap, 18th in 10 lap consecutive average. He finished 27th in this race last year. He's got a 19th place average finish over the 2 starts that he has here at Martinsville in the Cup Series. I think there's some PD upside potential here. I think Austin Cindric, I'm not sure he hunts for a top 10, but he probably could hunt for a top 15, which, if you can get yourself 10 spots difference and get a decent finish, then I think Austin Cindric is a decent play today. Next in line here, AJ Allmendinger, 6,600. In the last 2 starts for AJ, which both last year, he doesn't have a top 20. And then he goes out and qualifies 14th, but he did have an 11th place single lap practice, and he was 4th in 10 lap consecutive average, so he's pretty good on the long run. Until AJ gets more consistently running in the top at least 20 on ovals in the Cup Series, I'm just going to kind of hold off and wait for AJ to get back to a road course. So AJ could be one of the surprises today. AJ's temper gets in his way. And when things aren't going right, which typically, I don't care where you're running, things just don't go the way you want them to at Martinsville. And he just gets frustrated and mad. So I don't love AJ Allmendinger today. I think he finishes best 14th, and he's starting 14th. So not a whole lot of interest there. Eric Jones at 6,500. I'm not sure what's going on with this Legacy Motorsports group or the Petty GMS racing team. Noah Gregson's been so far a pretty big disappointment. Eric Jones has not had the finishes like he had last year at this point into the year. The 2 races that Jimmy Johnson had, they weren't great. So I'm not sure what's going on with this new organization at Legacy. I just don't. It was an existing team. The only difference is Jimmy Johnson's come on board. I would have thought that would have helped, not hurt the team. But Eric Jones was 28th in qualifying. He was 35th in single lap, 36th in 10 lap consecutive average. He only did 18 laps of practice. I think they had something break. I couldn't find out what happened or didn't happen with Eric. But so far this year, Eric hasn't shown me anything that makes me think that I want to take much ownership of him. So I haven't. But I can see starting 28th. He's got PD upside potential. Just doesn't have great stats for Martinsville either. So I'm faded off of Eric Jones. Justin Haley, 6,400. Pretty decent in practice. He was 12th in single lap, 17th in 10 lap consecutive average. He is starting 26. So we got some PD upside potential, but your average finish over the last 4 starts at Martinsville is a 31.3, and he finished 28th in the fall race last year. He ran well at Richmond. He ran fairly well at Phoenix. I don't know what the goblins are that have got Justin Haley at Martinsville, but something doesn't quite click right. So I faded off of Justin Haley, even starting 26. There is some PD upside potential. Michael McDowell, 6,200, who is, once again, quietly just having a pretty good year so far. just always seems to end up finishing either right inside the top 10 or just right outside the top 10. Now, his stats at Martinsville are not great. He's only got one top 20 in the last 5 starts at 25.6 average. He finished 18th in the fall race last year, but his practice speeds were good at 8th and 11th and 10-lap consecutive average. He's starting 20th, so there's PD upside. I've got a little bit of ownership of Michael McDowell. I think he quietly can get himself up, maybe hunt for that top 10, but if he can finish 11th, 12th, or 13th, start at 6,200, that's pretty good value for the points that he would end up gaining. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., $6,000, does not have a top 10, but 3 top 20s in the last 5 races at Martinsville. He's starting 16th. He was 33rd in single lap, 28th in 10-lap consecutive average. I don't have a whole lot of interest in Ricky Stenhouse Jr. today. I think he outkicked his coverage. If he were starting 30th, I would have some interest, or maybe even 25th. But starting 16th, I don't think he finishes any better than where he starts. So Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Justin Haley could burn me today pretty bad, but either way, I think I'm fairly safe. They just haven't had the runs that I'd like to see. I'd rather take a shot on Zane Smith at 5,100. I know he's driving a 51 Rick Ware car, but we talked about this last week, and I said there was a lot more to that story, and then boy, there sure was. But you still have Tommy Baldwin coming in to take over race operations on the NASCAR side for Rick Ware Racing. They bring in Zane Smith, who is a proven champion, to run that car. Zane has got some experience in this Cup car, not a ton, but Zane kind of, whatever he gets behind, he seems to run pretty well in. So at 5,800, starting 33rd, he was 18th in single lap and 16th in 10-lap consecutive average. I know we don't really have any stats on Zane with this stuff, but starting 33rd, Zane's going to just take care of that car. He's going to run it smart, and he's going to be there at the end, in my opinion. But I think he might finish one lap down, but one lap down puts you in 20th. And starting 33rd at 5,800, that puts you potentially in that optimal lineup talk. Same thing with Harrison Burton here at 5,700. He's got more experience than Zane does, and starting just right beside Zane. So I could be talked either way with Zane or Harrison. He's got a 19th place average finish. If he can just hit his average finish, that'll put him close to being in that optimal lineup talk. So I do like Harrison Burton. He was not as fast as Zane in practice, but Harrison Burton grew up racing on and around Martinsville Speedway. So, all right, we're getting close to the end here. Todd Gillen, 5,500, starting 13th. Because I've got to leave here in just a few minutes, so hit me up in the chat before you, if you have any questions. Todd Gillen, 5,500, who has quietly been having a really good year for Todd Gillen compared to last year. And he finished 14th in this race last year. He's starting 13th, but he was 27th and 33rd in practice. That has me a little bit concerned. But I faded off him because I think there's better value plays, and I don't know if he finished better than 13th. And I don't think finishing 15th, starting 13th, and even at 5,500 gives me enough points. So not a whole lot of interest in Todd Gillen today. I like to see him doing well. I think that's great. But Noah Gragson, who is starting 29th, with about the same type of stats, and he was 9th in single lap practice and 27th in 10-lap consecutive average. And I know still trying to figure this car out. And like I said, I think there's still something just kind of weird going on with this Legacy Racing Motor Group, whatever they're called. But maybe Noah figures it out today, and maybe just Eric Jones figures it out today. But I've got a little bit of ownership in Noah, mostly because he's got a little PD upside potential here. Ty Dillon, 5,100, starting 35th. A lot of PD upside potential here for Ty Dillon. But his practice speeds were not great. He was 30th in single lap, 31st in 10-lap consecutive average. He's got a 27.3 average finish. If you can get close to his average finish, that'll hit for value for $5,100. So 25% ownership in Ty Dillon today. He will probably be decently owned also. Corey LaJoy's $5,000, starting 27th. Corey LaJoy's been quietly having just a really good year. His average finish here is 27.4. can Corey LaJoie back it up again this week and end up with a decent finish? I think he still might be top 16 in points, and just quietly doing it, which is great for Corey LaJoie. Glad to see that team is really finally starting to turn the corner. So good on Corey. Starting 27th. I've got some ownership. I think there's some PD upside potential here. Not a ton, but I do think there is some, and I'm willing to take the shot on Corey LaJoie. JJ Yaley, have no interest in. He was 36th in single lap, 35th in 10 lap consecutive average. He's starting 36th. Even though he's starting 36th, I'm not sure he gets much better than 35th, 34th. And that may be even with attrition. Anthony Alfredo, 4,800, driving for BJ McLeod, starting 30th. He was 34th in single lap, 34th in 10 lap consecutive average. No real interest here either for Anthony Alfredo. I watched him most of the race last night and was not very, very good. All right, so let's start to break this down real quick. I'm also burning low on my battery on my laptop. So looking for 1 to 2 dominators. I'm looking at potentially more of the dominators are going to be William Byron, Joe Logano, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, maybe Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson, but they've got a little ways to go to get up there to do it. Place differential guys, I really do like the Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Ross Chastain. Alex Bowman's a really good spot. Austin Cindric, and kind of a wild card, Zane Smith being a value play with place differential. But I think we're going to see the normal guys end up rising to the top, even with it being 100 laps short than its normal 500 laps. I think the cream's going to rise to the top. Optimal lineups in the past. For the fall race, which is the 500 lap race, we had 2 dominators, 2 place differentials, 2 values, 2 finishers, and $1,100 left on our salary. You can see most of the finishers, most of the finishing spots were in the top 10, and most of their starting spots were better than 24th or better. So not a whole lot of PD upside, but I don't think we had a whole lot of guys that were coming from real far in the back like we do today. And then our optimal lineup for the spring race, which was frigidly cold. Realistically, 2 dominators. I mean, William Byron and Chase Elliott just stunk the show up, but it was a single groove racetrack, and it was really cold, and no rubber got laid down. It's going to be much different than that today. And then if we look at the last gen car 2 years ago, we had 1 dominator, 2 place differentials, 2 value, 3 finish, no money left over. And then in the spring 2021 race, 2 dominators, 2 place differentials, 2 values, 2 finishers. So, I mean, once again, it's pretty consistent. We're looking for those guys that are going to run up to top, finish in the top 10, and then a couple of guys that can come from the back and get us a decent amount of place differential. Either way, my battery is getting low. I need to get on the road and get to Martinsville. Races in 2 hours. Enjoy. Have a great day today. I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W's, so got to be around at the end to do that.
Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am. All the way to the checkered. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby!
Hell yeah.
Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal.
Thanks, man. Good job all day.
Great work, my man. Great work. Keep putting yourself in position. We'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
10-4, great job, guys.
Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you. Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal. We got it here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away.
Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job.
Great job, bud.